They look amazing.
I mean, yeah, they just refer to them as wraps. It's a chicken shawarma wrap.
Wow, fancy.
Yep. And so we also have hummus and pita, fatouche salad, and a honey biscuit. And then he also very kindly brought us some chocolate that I did not pay for.
Free chocolate?
No, he even like came in and like tossed the salad. It was very sweet.
What's the name of the business?
Sure. Sesame.
I've never even heard of it.
They used to have 2 locations. It seems like now they're down to 1. It's out on Maze, so it's west side.
Okay, that's probably a foreigner. Generally over there. I don't know. Not for any, not intentionally, but we just don't ever really get over there.
Well, I'm not defending it like I've eaten it before. I ordered it because it was on Easy Cater, and I was like, oh, that's different. And so trying to just continually mix things up, not make it too boring.
I just always have to look at what's going on here.
Yeah. Projector's been ordered.
And he said this one is vegetarian.
In the tray,
Do
yes.
you have more vegetarian?
I thought we had 2,
Including me or?
including you. Is it Trish? Trish vegetarian?
I don't think so.
I could have sworn we had at least one other.
Hello. Is it looking better than it did Monday?
No, it's worse. I'm so sorry.
I
It was just like
I
I
saw
saw
Martha right after it happened.
Now it's like all of it, not just one spot.
The girls keep telling me, just put on some.
Hi, James.
Yeah.
Hey. I met Jim.
It looks like.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, sure can.
Great.
What are you guys eating?
Sesame, Mediterranean.
Wow, there you go. Did you get some baba ganoush?
No, unfortunately, I played it safe.
No baba ganoush.
Apologies.
Baba ganoush is delicious.
Noted.
That's the eggplant, right? At Bubba.
Yeah.
I'm just about to email you the document for today.
Okay.
Do I need to help on it?
You do not need to, no.
Is everybody on summer vacation today?
Kind of seems like it, yeah. I think we usually cancel this meeting, but because of just the way the calendar fell.
Yeah. I know we canceled last one.
All right. Sent. Nadine specifically requested the virtual option, so the fact that she's not here yet, she does have her kids home for summer, which is why she wants to.
I wanted to ask the group, but this might be the group right now, but has everyone seen the Threads of Pride things floating around? The Threads of Pride project that was funded as a Thrive grant? Did you see any of it?
No, well, I haven't. But don't let me be your litmus test.
Okay.
Hey, Jerry.
Hey, Jared. They just
Thanks for
finished.
joining us.
I think the grand finale of the project was this past weekend as part of the Pride Parade, or Pride Day. They had a big event at Provo Starks, and Jesse and I were both there, and it was very well attended. Had a couple old pop-up events.
This is not the Gallery 12, we ended up out of town
No,
for
that was the arts
Okay.
mixer.
Okay.
Sorry, maybe some more context. This one was the one that was working with high schools, and student groups, and community groups across the state on the LGBTQ plus awareness and making a quilt or making flags for that. So tons of outreach events throughout June for Pride Month, but then this big culminating event where they had every inch of the gallery in Harvester was covered in these flags, which was really cool.
I totally missed it.
Yeah. And they had a good performance.
It happens.
That's okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on right now.
Yeah, it's been a busy summer. I can't believe we're already in July.
Yes.
Okay, so. Go away.
Dominic was not gonna be able to join us.
If we needed him, we could call him,
Okay.
but he's driving. But when Nadine hops on, we will have 5, which, based on my understanding of our current board size, is quorum.
Okay. Well, there's nothing major to vote on today, or really anything, so. we'll be fine. Jim, where are you right now?
I'm in my office. I got a bunch of like meetings, academic appeals and stuff. I'm back to back today.
Okay.
Well, we will do our best not to keep you over.
I was hoping you were somewhere like fun and exotic, but this in your office is okay too.
No, this is the exact opposite of fun and exotic. Yeah.
If we aren't planning to vote, I think we could probably get started and just fill Nadine in over here. So thanks everybody for coming, day before major holiday, appreciate that. The major thing that we wanted to discuss, there we go.
Perfect.
Good timing, and I heard the door too, so that might be somebody else. Hey Nadine, can you hear us?
Oh, yes, I can.
Great. I just thanked everybody for being here. We're not having there's not really anything to vote on today. So with your permission, I'll just go ahead.
My permission?
You're the vice chair, you're the chair today.
Oh, well then, yes, absolutely.
Okay. I'm just double checking. Are we recording? We are recording, great. You guys hopefully remember as part of developing the new tiers for the cultural funding operational grants, we discussed the creation of a new grant that would sort of replace artist access and developing arts. And at the time we had suggested, maybe setting aside 50,000 for that, and it would be a development grant and a project grant simultaneously. Just the applicant had to decide what they wanted to apply into. Those of you who are here, the guidelines that I've come up with, that Lindsay and I have worked on, are in front of you. Nadine, I did email them to you. Jim, I also emailed them to you. Great. So, I kind of just wanted to, it's much shorter than the last time we did this, so nobody panic. And it is very similar to the original Arts Thrive grant opportunity that we did. So you'll see a lot of things that have come back. The first thing that I want to talk about is right there in the opening, which is that at least as this grant has been developed, there's been 4 categories sort of envisioned. The larger thing is that an individual or an organization can apply, and an individual can apply for making a piece, making art, or they can apply to build their capacity, which would be the original artist access grant, that professional development. Organizations similarly can apply to make art, or they can apply for capacity building, which was that developing arts grant that we used to have that wasn't very successful. So there's essentially 4 categories. Does that sound acceptable to anyone? Does anybody have any immediate thoughts on that?
I like it.
Okay? At the very least, we're figuring out how it's gonna go. Now we get into more of the nitty gritty. This is, I believe, taken straight from the other Arts Thrive grant, that all individuals, groups, and organizations that serve the residents of Wichita, except for those directly employed by the city of Wichita, city departments, or city-owned operations, are eligible to apply. Nonprofit status is required for organizational applicants, and individuals do not need business or nonprofit status to apply. Then there's the business entities may apply in partnership with a nonprofit or individual artist. And so Lindsay and I were discussing this even earlier today, just to try to figure out if that's a path that we want to continue to go down, or do we want to limit organizations to being nonprofits, questions like that.
Sorry.
We have the argument that whenever we fund an individual, we're essentially funding a small business. And limiting businesses to nonprofits would eliminate groups like Gallery 12, which we just saw at the Arts Mixer. So does anyone have any thoughts or feelings about whether or not for-profit businesses should be able to apply into this program? And if they do they need a partner? One of our more traditional individuals or nonprofits?
Another example I'm thinking of that have reached out to us in recent years is like Watermark folks, when they bring in an author, have tried to figure out like, can they play in this game at all? And they have not been able to. So that's another example.
I am concerned about opening that door, because it could lead to things that we can't even see right now.
The other one is Roxy's in its historical model, though they're moving into the nonprofit realm right now, by another organization that works pretty equivalent to nonprofit, but they're not, or they haven't been.
Yeah. I am very comfortable with they can apply as long as they're partnering with a nonprofit. But I don't know if we should allow it just for business alone.
Do we want to add that partnership opportunity to this paragraph?
I don't know about that, we don't want to open that at all. But,
Even partnering, you mean?
you know,
It's a question.
Yeah.
I just think there's so many private businesses out there and I just have a concern about opening that door.
When we only have 50,000 left.
Exactly. Let me ask you this, what are you seeing in other communities our size? Or just other communities, period?
I'm happy to answer from my
Go
experience.
for it.
That in my experience, not many places do what we do,
That's a,
Period.
period.
Yeah.
So we sort of blaze a trail here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice glasses, Jesse.
Thank you.
Yeah. Darn trailblazers.
Have we had
It's always nice
requests?
if there's
Like, are
precedent.
we responding to a need that's been surfaced?
not necessarily, but I'm trying to think through the Artist Thrive applicants that we had, because we did have this language in that. That businesses could apply in partnership with someone, which I think like STEM music is a good example, which was awarded, STEM music in partnership with arts partners,
Right.
was awarded.
But that's not necessarily to say that arts partners couldn't apply for this grant and then hire STEM music to fulfill the project.
Right.
So, you know,
Well, and
yeah.
even in the watermarks or example, like a local author could apply for it as an individual artist and present something in partnership with a business.
Right.
The individual artist could definitely apply. So there might still be workarounds. The Roxy's example would be a little bit harder. The Gallery 12 model wouldn't be eligible
The individuals inside of Gallery 12, yes, but not as a collective. I mean, we could alter the language to say something like, business entities interested in pursuing this funding opportunity should seek out an organizational partner or a nonprofit partner so that, and I don't have this yet, but so that they're part of that nonprofit's project. So we're encouraging them to find other nonprofits and be a part of that nonprofit's project.
Well, and ultimately, we want to benefit both the nonprofit and the business, I suppose, if we're doing this.
Another example of food for thought is the state's touring roster program, which almost every state has an equivalent program.
Yeah.
I don't know super well how it works here, but any venue, I don't believe it's just nonprofit, can apply to bring one of these touring roster artists to their community to perform. So it's like, here's these artists that the state has vetted, that they're trying to get out throughout the state. And a venue can apply to receive funding to bring that artist to their venue.
That is true.
So that could be a bar or restaurant, that could be a coffee shop, it could be any venue.
Anybody who's promoting the arts.
Because that's ultimately the goal, is what's gonna advance the arts community.
How do you see a partnership working between a nonprofit and for-profit?
Well, very, very much like Lindsay's example of the partnership between arts partners and STEM music that we approved as part of the Arts Thrive grant. So STEM music, I believe, is a for-profit arts, music sort of, I mean, it's one person, but organization. And they partnered with arts partners to create to complete their project. So it would really, I think, be like the business, the for-profit would be offering a service that the nonprofit needs help with. And so, the nonprofit is helping make the art happen, and through that, using the skills of the for-profit business.
I wonder if maybe if we want to do it, if we just kind of make it a size of business, so it's not like a large business that would be applying, but we keep it to smaller businesses.
Locally owned.
Number of full-time employees.
Number of full-time employees, or even revenue, like smaller dollar
Sure.
businesses.
Is there something that the chamber uses to categorize businesses like that?
I don't know.
Okay.
Do some sort of differentiation between large and small businesses.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's on their dues, but they can tell you that 90% of their members are small businesses.
Sure.
So they have to have the data
In some,
somewhere.
in
I mean, maybe
somewhere
just to start,
there's a
rather
line.
than just open the
Yeah.
floodgates to
Yeah.
small business, to have it be a small business.
I think that's entirely acceptable.
And I like the idea of it being locally owned.
Mhm.
I mean, we could also say that a for-profit business cannot be the primary applicant. It has to be the organization or
I
the
agree.
individual.
I think the organization should be the one making the application
Sure.
which, see, they already do this.
Yeah.
Nonprofits are already doing this. They've got businesses, local businesses that they are partnering with, who maybe is offering them space or, accounting work or whatever.
Mhm.
But we would only cut the check to the nonprofit, and if the nonprofit chose to share it with the partnering business, they can do what they want with the money.
That's their business, yeah. But because this is new to the city, doing a project, a programmatic funding, like, we just really want to make sure that we are.
But I could see them marketing it as such that the local businesses are made aware of this opportunity, so that they would go seek out a nonprofit, or they know somebody that they would reach out to and say, hey, let's figure out if we can do something and apply for this grant.
Yeah, this isn't the same that you're talking about, but like even on the developmental side, if they can climb with nonprofit go, here's if this is available, and says, hey, that you can get development hire me, pay me through this grant, I'll do X, for you. I think to me, it's the same sort of thing. Jim, sorry.
Yeah, thanks. Can y'all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
So, thank you. So, I don't know, I have some fairly strong feelings about this. In order to kind of intermingle for-profits and not-for-profits, I think that can be problematic, just because, how we look at the financials, it is completely different accounting standards, different everything else. But largely, it just doesn't feel right for me. So like when you look at nonprofits versus for-profits, nonprofits are subject to significantly stricter um, levels of requirements when it comes to like accountability and transparency. Like for instance, if there was a for-profit out there and we suspected something, we couldn't do like a Cora request for them, a Kansas Open Records request for them. Also, you look at for-profits and they're more apt to have what we consider to be mission drift. But largely more than anything else, with these type of grants, this is kind of a big part of the funding concerns for not-for-profits. And I believe it would put for-profits at a competitive advantage. And I'm just afraid of the potential stranglehold that might have on some not-for-profits that are just trying to break through. So those are kind of my concerns in a nutshell. Largely, the big thing is transparency. If we ever suspected anything from a not-for-profit, it's as simple as doing a Cora request. You can't do that outside of an attorney for a for-profit organization. Sorry. So I guess that's how I feel.
Exactly why you're on the committee, Jim.
Yeah. I think those are really good points. Like it has me leaning more towards what we were talking about originally, I think, and is the language that you have in there, which is if a nonprofit is the primary applicant, then we'll consider a for-profit being a part of the partnership. Partially, the only reason I'm like, I want to stay open to that idea is because I think partnering across sectors, like that's, I think anytime we can promote that could be good for organizations on both sides in the long term, right? Like opening new doors to collaborations and revenue streams and who knows what else it could lead to. So I like the idea of suggesting partnership, but I would agree. I don't know that I want our dollars going directly to a for-profit.
But that highlighted sentence was in the grant last year,
It was.
and
We got a lot of applications I would say were from for-profits as the lead on those projects.
so if we take it out, then they're going to say, what happened to?
Well, but at the same time, this is more our money, so we have more
Right.
ownership.
And we were very cautious to advertise it last year, as this is one-time funding that we hope to get again.
And
Or hope to be able to present again.
right, I would say, I don't know that we're fully sold on reusing the name.
Okay.
So there's just where we've currently landed. Happy to leave that there for now, maybe come up with some alternative language examples and we can revisit it. Does that feel good? Does anybody have more thoughts?
If I can maybe just wrap up like a consensus of what I heard is nonprofit and individual artist focused, but partnership with a business is okay. Lead applicant and funding would have to go to the nonprofit or individual artist. Is that a safe consensus from Jim? Would you be comfortable with that?
Let me just unmute. So the funding would go directly to the not-for-profit with that 990, and there would be a collaboration with a for-profit I'm just trying to think. Yeah, I mean, tacitly, that makes me feel a little bit better. Um, I always get a little nervous about intermingling funds, but yeah, let me ask this. Uh, do the representatives of the city have a recommendation for this? How do you feel?
I think where I struggle is an individual artist is also a business. So we have a precedent where we can grant money to businesses anyway. So I don't think we have a limitation necessarily, but the spirit of the grant is to go towards the nonprofit or not a for-profit entity. I'm looking through for the applicants for Arts Thrive last year, and some really compelling projects from, I would say, small groups of artists, or like a band or the podcast collective, or someone trying to start up a music studio. There's really not an avenue for them. And that, I don't think that they're like a for-profit business in the way that.
Cargo, or I don't know.
Yeah, a retail, just because I'm staring at you, a non-arts business. Like, they're still arts businesses. So I think that they fit within the arts community. We just don't have a place for them. But knowing how we don't have an unlimited funding pool, and we had 70 applicants and funded 20 in the Artist Access Grant this last category, limiting it, I don't think is a problem either. So I don't know if that answers your question, Jim. I can go either way. I think staff will work towards executing the committee's desire, committee's direction.
Yeah, I suppose if and this is just me, this is just one vote. But if it were me, I would want to keep it exclusive to nonprofits right now. But that's just one vote. So yeah.
It's an important one. I'm just trying to look up very quickly to see if that language, or the spirit of that language, came from the NEA.
Because I think, to your point, Lindsay, you could limit it to business entities whose primary business is in the arts, and small local, however you define small, but locally owned. Because I think with that example, some of the examples that you gave, I mean, those, while their individuals are applying, it is business related. It's not nonprofit.
And they're more of like collectives, like Brick Mob applied.
Right.
Well, they're not a nonprofit that I'm aware of. But it's a collective of artists in the same way Gallery 12 is, and they're not, no one's getting rich off of those opportunities, I don't think, at the moment, so.
Do we issue them some sort of tax form?
We
Not
don't,
usually.
not that. We do have contracts with them, and I think maybe, Jim, to your concern we do have a clause in all of our contracts that allows us to audit public funds. Obviously, we don't want to ever go down that legal route, but we do have that in our clause. But if there's gross misconduct suspected, we wouldn't be able to necessarily address it. We didn't meet. Oh, go for it.
Yeah, and I don't anticipate that there would be like that type of thing. I think my larger concern is that it's the power disparity and the competitive disadvantage that are not-for-profits see. And I'm not objective on this whole thing, because I work at Little Friends University, and I have to go up against Wichita State University each and every day, and I know what type of an uphill slog that is. So I kind of see a little bit, and I understand, and I acknowledge that it's different, but I think every little benefit that our not-for-profits get, I think, is precious, and it makes art better. But again, just one vote.
Well, I think this has all been a lot of good feedback, and Lindsay and I will probably take it and try to hammer out at least some options so that we can pick the one that feels right. I don't want to, I love the discussion, but I do want to make sure that we get through all of the questions that I have for today.
quick thought.
Yes,
Does city council or the mayor have any thoughts on who would get paid
Not that I'm
or
aware
who
of.
could apply?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I think Dave tasked this committee to do that for them.
Okay.
so one, quirk that I've written into this, ineligibility, you'll see that the 2 dashes there in the middle of the first page, is that if you get one of these grants, you've got to wait a year before you can apply again. So if you get if you get the organizational development grant or the individual development grant, you have to wait a year. If you get the artistic grant, you've got to wait 2 years. Because I don't want to see the same groups getting it every single year. This was sort of something that was in our developing arts. It's sort of in Arts Thrive, not Arts Thrive, Artist Access. But just putting that bit of a delay in there, that once you get this grant, you've got to take a year off from it, basically the year that you are using the grant funds. And then you can apply again afterward. Does that sit okay with everybody? Does that time frame feel okay, taking a year off and then, or 2 years off, depending on the type you get?
It does with me, as far as, coming from somebody who's applied for a lot of these
Yeah.
grants over the years. I mean, you kind of expect it, and we all want it shared,
Right.
across the community.
I almost would have thought that the timing would be switched on them, so that the capacity building had a longer time to be implemented and see results.
I guess my goal is that I would always want to spend more money on capacity building than on programmatic stuff. From my vantage point, I'm not saying art's not important, obviously, but that's, yeah.
Well, and, why do we have to have 2 different timeframes? Just,
We don't. It's just, it wasn't arbitrary, but it just felt like it would encourage people to go for a certain type more often, or, again, help that rotation.
I can ask for clarification. If my organization gets a capacity one year, could I apply for the programmatic the next year?
Can't apply to the program at all. It's not just for the,
And
and
then,
right now, could they apply for both in the same year and then?
we're also thinking that that's probably a no.
that they would have to pick one. However, can't remember if we talked about this, because now my brain is
It's fine.
full circle. Organizations that receive operational grants can apply for this, or cannot.
As it currently sits, they can.
Okay, with the exception of city-owned, operated affiliate
Yes.
organizations.
But I am open to them not being able to. It's how much of my own personal biases do I put in the first draft is the question.
Are there other nonprofits that are, sorry, let's stay on your double dash, because I went on to the next paragraph. I have another question. Moving right on.
No, it's okay, we can move on, please ask your question.
Are there other nonprofits that are similar to the art museum in that they have some legacy employees who are city employees, but over time, the idea is to not have city employees?
Yes and no. I think that clause is really related to our cultural institutions that the city owns. So Botanica, WAM, Cowtown, Indian Museum, and City Arts are where we have staff and where we provide significant operational expenditures.
And so instead of making it a general, we can just name them.
And then similarly, this would address library, parks, other affiliate departments who have dabbled in the program in the past. The goal is to not get the appearance that we're giving ourselves funding.
Okay, that makes sense, but it seems to be, the decision is based on staff members.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, we can cut that part and we can just name the specific organizations who can't apply
Okay.
instead, which would, for your purposes, I
Right,
think, be clear.
the art museum may say,
Sure.
well, we only have staff members because of some other decision that was made 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Every time they hire a new employee, it's not a city of Wichita staff member any longer.
Yep.
So further up in eligibility, like the second line, we have city arts, old Cowtown, et cetera. We'll list out all the ones that would not be eligible.
Okay.
And we'll seek your guys' approval for that. Absolutely.
And I would say selfishly, that's my direction, not necessarily a requirement. If there's and this is where I can play devil's advocate on the argument, because these organizations receive a finite amount of money from the city it's guaranteed, which is great, but like City Arts' opportunity to do special projects is pretty limited. It's not in a fundraising capacity because it's not a nonprofit. It's not a for-profit either, it's a government agency, so it's committed. Where does that open floodgates to then we're paying ourselves, so the city's covering its own projects?
I think it gets too close to that. And I would say Arts Council through the years has struggled with that a little bit with funding that they have given. And by example, City Arts would receive funding from the Arts Council, or the Art Museum I know has received funding from the Arts Council because there wasn't strong enough language to prohibit them from applying. So they applied and
they've got great grant writers.
and have great
Yeah.
grant writers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you for entertaining that thought, but we'll keep it as is then,
Okay.
with city affiliates.
Just gonna move along, and if we get through it early, then we'll go back and grab some stuff as it marinates. Lindsay and I have already talked to each other a little bit more about this today, but we're thinking that this minimum request might actually be $500 and then potentially a maximum request of $10,000. And then I just tossed in there that, because historically we never fund full requests for anything, that we're not guaranteeing you'll get your full request. And I'll figure out a different way to write that. But the basic question is, how do you guys feel about a minimum of 500 and a maximum of 10,000?
I mean, based on the applicants we saw previously, I think that 500 makes sense, because we had some,
We had something as low as 300,
Yeah.
it seemed
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, we only had, of the 70 that we got last year, only 4 of them were below 500. And so I feel comfortable saying minimum 500. And if somebody's like, well, the 2 classes I want to take are only 350, I'll say to them, well, what's the 3rd class you can take?
Right.
Sounds like we're in agreement on the minimum. How does the maximum feel? And this sort of gets into the big project versus many projects argument that comes up, discussion, it's not an argument.
And do we want to separate it out to where organizations can apply up to this, but individual artists could only apply up to this cap? Or is it?
Well, then what about Brookmont, where there's several artists involved?
Did anybody apply for that much last year?
Well, I'm thinking of like the original, our project grants from last year, which were the $25,000 projects, right? And for some organizations, I think, or at least our smaller organizations, that felt like a big number. And so maybe 10,000 is more manageable for them. But again, these aren't necessarily match grants, so if it's just a $10,000 project, it's a $10,000 project. I want to protect the artist access part of this program, so I don't want to say like maximum $25,000, but.
what was the budget last, what was the?
So for artist access, we tried to hold back 15,000 for last year for artist access grants. It ended up at like 14,300 because the percentage that we got in was just like 0.2 off.
Year before that, it was 20?
It was $20,000 a year before that. So theoretically, that section can always be carved off of the larger amount and reserved.
Right.
15 to 20,000 for artist access if you wanted. It's just.
10 just seems high given that budget.
It is.
I just was wondering, is it a percentage of the budget as a max as opposed to a dollar amount?
Percentage of what we hold back of our budget.
Mhm.
I see. I think that
Like,
might
is it, I don't know, just, I guess it depends on what we're trying to solve for. Are we trying to, get a lot of grants or just a few? Like if you wanted to do a max of 10% of whatever the artist thread budget is, would be the max amount to a single entity.
Sure. I think we would have to, I think that just means, like, because we're gonna get into, obviously, the operational grant stuff soon, and we're gonna need to figure out how much to hold back for this program, and so, we'll just need to figure that out. Probably in September, maybe.
That's where we've kind of estimated, and we'll likely make a recommendation in the $50,000 mark, which is kind of the number we're playing with now. But that's also with a handful of variables and assumptions, which is based on the new tier structure that would pull out Great Plains Nature Center and the Library Foundation, who could then apply into this grant. So if we look at what they received this current year, plus the Artist Access Grant equivalent, that gives us in the 40 to 50,000 and change.
And since Great Plains Nature Center was awarded $10,000 last year, I sort of
That's
let that in, affect the maximum as well.
And we had how many applicants? 7?
I mean, for the individual artists, we had 70. For operational grants, I wanna say it was in the 30s.
I was thinking 40s.
Well, it might
I'm
have been
just wondering,
40.
like, should any one entity get more than 10% of whatever we have allocated to give out? I don't, I'm just picking 10% as,
So there's,
10,000 just feels really high to me.
I think there's two other variables. One is that we're not required to give their full request. And then, I mean, it just depends on how big of a, if they're applying for $10,000 for a programmatic grant for making art, like, do we believe in that project? Do we want to see that project happen? And so, I guess it's what projects do you want to see pitched that you get to choose from? And then you can make the decision later of, okay, well, we don't necessarily want to do the $10,000 project. We want to do the two $5,000 projects, if that makes sense. But if you don't even want to bother considering the 10,000, then we can just adjust the maximum.
Is there a number you'd?
I don't know, I just feel like 500 to 10,000 is a huge
It is.
range.
Do we have to fund projects in full?
No,
Oh, no.
So they could they could submit a $20,000 project, but only be asking for 10,000.
Or they could be asking
We could
for
give
20,
them-
but we could only give them
Yeah.
a percentage,
so it
right?
could be it could be a project of any size, theoretically, and they could be requesting a portion of those funds. And then we can, you all can choose to award them a percentage of what they've asked for, so.
How do we manage whether or not the money got used on the project, if it was maybe contingent upon them finding other funds to have the full dollar amount in order to make it a go?
I think that comes down to us evaluating risk, which is something that we do. I think it comes down to, I mean, this is very similar to the Arts Thrive grant that we did last year, where some organizations did apply for $50,000 projects and just wanted that 25 to go into it. And so I think it's truly just going to affect scoring, how you all feel. That might, in my opinion, that will come out in the wash.
But we could give it to them and they could not use it for the project.
Well, they
That's the
could
risk
decline
we
the
speak
award
of.
if they can't make it happen with the award.
Didn't we have
And
a
then
question
into the
in there?
contract that they would have to give it back if it didn't
Yeah, well-
happen, okay.
Did we have a question in there about funding and if you didn't, where your funds were coming from for your project in general? I thought there.
So we do have questions like what experience do you have in completing projects like this? But for the budget itself, it was just really how do you plan to use the funds?
Because I don't believe it was a match grant,
It's not,
and I would discourage us having a match grant. Although we could.
Yeah, but, in the rubric, which is, again, just taken straight from Arts Thrive, please rate the applicant's presentation of their budget and understanding of the costs involved. And so if you don't feel that they are capable of getting the rest of the money, you would score them lower, which would lower your average, which would lower
Yeah, I
their
just wondered-
overall average.
Should there be a question, if the amount that you're applying for does not cover your full cost of your project, please explain what the resources are for funding or some.
I mean, I think that could definitely be part of the explanatory text for the budget thing. I don't know that it needs to be its own question, but maybe just saying,
Yeah.
please make sure your budget accounts for all of the necessary funding, including sources. Yes,
Sources, yeah.
Yes, Nadine.
Yeah, so I like that idea. I also agree that that will come out in the wash when it comes to the scoring piece of it. Oh man, I waited too long.
Take us back. What do you need to say?
What do I need to say? What was it? So, oh, that's what it was. So in my experience in the grant writing world, what they'll say in response to that question is, we'll figure out some other way to get the rest of the dollars. Like a lot of times people will just be like, we'll get another grant and we'll make it happen, right? So I don't know. In my experience, I find not a lot of value in that kind of question. The other thing I was going to mention was, I feel like when you think about it, and our grants aren't like making anything happen in and of itself, right? Like we're always a piece of the pie that's contributing towards even like the operational grants. Like we're trusting them to like make their programs and their work happen, right? We're just a small piece of that. So in my mind, like I feel like if they've figured out a project they want to do, or they have a collaborative that they want to make happen, and like we can be a part of that puzzle and helping that happen, like that doesn't give me any qualms at all. And I would just, my last thing was, I just wanted to say, I think the broad spectrum is great. I think if we have somebody like an exploration place who wants to put together a really big show and like ask for $10,000 to do it, great. And if we want to have the choral chamber, whoever our little singing group is, like if they want $500 to like do their website or whatever, then that's totally appropriate. So all I'd say, I just wanted to chime in and say, I think the range is good, and I don't have any concerns about being a portion of someone's budget. Thank you. Love, Nadine.
I think maybe it's possible I misunderstood Allison's question, but it was more that she wanted to just make sure that they had accounted for where the rest of the money was coming from.
Yeah, just.
Not necessarily, what are you gonna do if we don't fully fund your
Yeah,
request?
it's just how are they planning?
So if you have a $15,000 project, where is that other 5,000 coming from? We wanna know that. Yeah.
Right.
I can
Sources of funding.
make sure that that's clear.
On the 10,000, I just was trying to think about it in terms of percentage. Like, do we want any entity to get more than 20% of our budget? Like, I was trying to think of it not on a dollar amount, but just distribution of funds, and from a percentage standpoint, as opposed to just a sheer dollar amount on the top end.
I think it's appropriate, I mean, because Nadine's point is a good one, that I would imagine that a number of projects that we're gonna have pitched are projects that are happening anyway. And that they just want our money to go into the pot to make the project happen. And so if it was a $5,000 sponsorship grant sort of thing that we were not the sole funding. So one thing about the Arts Thrive grant is that we gave bonus points to things that wouldn't happen without our funding.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't necessarily considered that as part of this grant program. I think it absolutely can be something where it's only going to happen because of this money, but.
I mean, with the capacity building component, I don't know that we would want to do that, but
I'm just tossing out options here, seeing if anything resonates.
Allison, if it helps them and make it more complicated, the simple math I was doing in my head is if we gave 20 $1,000 grants and 3 $10,000 grants, a lot of money's going out the door at different levels. So it's not necessarily one person's getting a huge chunk of the pie, although that is happening, but there's still a lot of smaller grants going out at the same time. And so there's both like depth and what do I always say, broad
Broad and
and,
deep.
broad and deep funding.
I argue for broad.
I think both
But if
have
we
a lot of
ended up
merit.
with a $15,000 budget, I don't know. I mean, I guess, do we really want someone to get 10? Do we even want the opportunity for someone to get 10 if we only have 15? That was more my,
Understood. I think that,
But I think Nadine's right in that that'll come out in the wash.
Yeah.
Because we traditionally haven't done that, really.
yeah,
We've only got a finite amount, but we're very judicious about how we dole it out.
for one thing, I would be very surprised if this committee agreed to only put $15,000 in this pot when it was time. Because we're not looking at like a massive reduction and then we're gonna have to start cutting costs. What we're looking at is less growth than we've seen, but still growth. And we've already, with these tiers, sort of taken into account just redoing what we did last year with the same amount of money. And so there's a little bit more money. There's the artist access grant that we already had, and with the two organizations that we have moved out of the operational grant opportunity. All of that together is over $50,000. So that's why we feel comfortable recommending setting aside that amount for this grant program. But like what happened last year, if you get so many cultural funding, so many operational grant things that you're like, okay, we need to pull a little bit out of that, we can revisit the maximum. Absolutely. You know, I don't know that it needs to be a formula necessarily, but if we feel that, 10,000 just feels inappropriate. Yeah, but as Ann said, I would be very surprised if we had 15,000 and you all decided to do a $10,000 project in there.
okay.
Or even if we had
We all
50
started
and we
fighting
decided
with
to buy each other's,
Right,
projects.
yeah, I
It
would
just
be
doesn't
shocked.
seem
Does not feel like what you would do.
we would traditionally, yeah.
No.
Okay.
So for the calendar, this is all very tentative, but the important things are that the applications would be due in November, which would give you guys from November to December to read them. That I did not make them due. I tried to give everybody a couple months to apply. I did not make them due in October because I want to give you guys a little bit of a break in between grant programs, is the goal. And then we would just have a bit of a quick turnaround on our end to get them to city staff or city council before the end of December. Any red flags popping up for anybody?
Isn't, am I wrong? Is September 18th? Don't we have our operational funding?
Yes,
terminated?
you're right. I'll move that. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't have my calendar truly open when I did that. Yes, I just sort of picked those dates. I was like, what's soon after?
You just really wanted to get it all in there on September 18th, big day.
I can do it.
One opportunity that this gives the committee, and Jesse, we haven't talked about this, is if you have operational grants that are potentially grant applications that are low performing or are not scoring very high, but there's still a lot of merit in what the organization is doing, they could be declined for an operational grant and be really encouraged to go into a capacity building grant. I'm thinking of like Make ICT last year, didn't get an operational grant, but if there's an opportunity for us to coach them into applying for this other grant, so there's a way to support them. And or some of these smaller organizational grants that are, I guess we only had one or two that were under $1,000, but notable, that they maybe would be better fit in the program grant. I think this year, because the way the timing works out, they'll likely still apply for both. But you have that opportunity, so that might allow for more funding available in this project grant versus an operational grant, because it gives you more bandwidth to fund them in a different way if you don't feel like they're strong in another category.
I'm out of town the 15th through 18th of September.
It happens.
What's that?
I'm out of town the 15th through 18th of September.
Okay, just for the consideration of time, I'm gonna jump past the application. It is essentially the Arts Thrive application, which very quickly, I'm not planning on having this one have video applications. Is anybody heartbroken by the lack of a video?
Remind me, how many did we get?
Like 3.
Okay.
If I hear
Was
from
it
the.
just only 3?
Yeah.
It was 3 or 4. Yeah, if I hear from the community that it's a need, then we'll revisit. But I think now we can back off of that momentarily. For the rubric, I just used the first 4 parts of this is the last page of the Arts Thrive grant, which was just the alignment, how you feel about its timeline, how you feel about its connection with the community and the impact, and then its budget. I think that was more than enough to get some variation in scoring. But if anybody, I don't know that we have time right now, but if you have strong feelings about things that we should consider, I'll send the notes from this meeting out and please let me know. And we can look at it from there. And then final selection, I have that one section highlighted because again, I'm much more about using this for capacity building than I am for art. And so if it came down to, we had 2 great grants and they were the same exact score, my goal would be that we pick the capacity building one. But we don't have to build that into the grant guidelines. It can just be an informal thing that the committee decides what's important to them in that moment. Would you rather I just strike that and leave it up to your own figuring it out as a group of 10 to 11 people?
Yes.
Or, yes, I'm hearing yes.
I say yes, because honestly, I mean, I agree with you, the capacity building is,
Mm-hmm.
I think most of the money should go personally, but if it's a dynamic art project,
Yeah, why limit us?
why would we say no?
It's fair. I'll strike it.
Arguably, it would score higher than.
We'll find out.
True.
If we find that we need more guidelines in future years, we will
It could
revisit.
be that time.
Done.
Yeah, beyond that, this is all pretty standard stuff. Because it's new, I want to have as thorough of guidelines out there when we launch as possible. So this is all stuff that should hopefully feel pretty standard for you guys. Lindsay and I still need to discuss and figure out what we're going to track, what we expect them to do in terms of an annual report for you all and for us. So obviously, I think that will look different for the capacity building as compared to the project grants. So there will probably be 2 versions of an annual report, but that is still to come. And in our last couple minutes together, does anybody have something they want to go back over, a thought they want to get out?
I want to ask about the 2 highlighted things on the 3rd page, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, under the describe how you would go from receiving the grant to completing, and you've highlighted how would you connect with the local community.
Yes.
What's your thinking behind the highlight?
The highlight is to remind myself that that's not necessarily going to apply to capacity building grant.
Okay.
And so I just need to further flesh out that there's going to be multiple questions,
Okay,
multiple versions of questions.
sure.
Which is the same why it says at the bottom of 11 will not populate.
Right.
Yeah. Because those aren't necessarily applicable.
Yeah.
So.
There's a lot going on in there, I can see it.
No. I'm good.
Okay.
We'll work on refining this. We do need the committee to approve it officially, which would be at the August meeting. So stay tuned for that. We'll get a cleaner draft out closer to that date.
Yes.
But I think we're heading, the direction the committee wants us to go. Thank you for the
Worst-
discussion.
Worst case scenario, I did set the opening date to after our September meeting. So we prefer to have it ready in August, but
Yeah.
we will both nail this further down, but thank you all for your feedback, it's been helpful.
Good.
So we won't spend all day in September doing question and answer session.
Oh, yeah, you will.
Okay, so that's
Yeah,
still.
oh, it's on. Yeah, I'll feed
You're not
you,
getting out of
Jerry.
that, Jerry.
Okay.
And applications are already coming in for that.
Jerry, if you need to skip out on that, or if you can only do a certain part, you just tell us, okay?
I should be all right.
All right,
I just realized that this is January 1, 25, and it
thank you.
should be 26.
That's incorrect. Yep. Thank you.
Test.
I'm all about dates today.
Jim, Nadine, anything else?
All good, thank you.
Your feedback
No,
has
I'm
been
good. Thank you.
Very helpful, Jim. Thank you. Thank you, Nadine.
Thank you, thank you.
See you all.
Bye.
And if anyone wants to take